Hi class. Today we're going to talk a little bit about your new essay assignment. Oh, yep, I heard the groan, so you all heard me say the word essay. But bear with me because I think that you're actually going to enjoy this one. We're going to be working on something that's called a narrative essay. Before we get started, is there anyone here who can name an author that's famous for narrative essays or essays in general? Anyone? Thoreau, yes, absolutely. Thoreau is a great essayist. What about Nora Ephron? She's someone that you might want to check out. Who else? Oh, yes, David Sedaris. Absolutely. Some of you might have read his work. He's been kind of more recently famous for his essays about his childhood and other things. But my personal favorite essayist is Kurt Vonnegut. Now, Kurt's an excellent novelist and an even better short story writer. And later in this class, we're actually going to read and discuss his short story, Harris Bergeron. But even Vonnegut's short stories fall short compared to his narrative essays, in my opinion. So if you get a chance sometime this week, and this is not mandatory, so you don't have to, but if you get a chance to go to the library and look for some of his work, his book of Man Without a Country is a great place to start if you want to read his essays. The first essay in that is about his childhood, and it starts like this. As a kid, I was the younger member of my family, and the youngest child in any family is always a joke maker, because a joke is the only way he could enter into adult conversation. My sister was 5 years older than I was, my brother was 9 years older, and my parents were both talkers. So at the dinner table, when I was very young, I was boring to all those other people. Boom! He's grabbed the reader with the first few lines. Why? You might be the family clown, or one of your siblings might be, or you might know what it feels like to feel like you're the only one in a crowd who doesn't have something interesting to say. Have you ever had that experience before? You're sitting there in class or work if you have a job, and everyone's laughing and talking, and you're thinking, I'm the only one that doesn't have something to contribute to this conversation. See, Vonnegut has created a personal connection with the reader without really saying much about anything else. You don't know anything about the plot or where the story's going at this point, but you have a personal connection because we all know how that feels at one time or another. So according to the Purdue Owl, and as a side note, it's just one of my favorite academic resources for writing information that's out there, and I will give you a link to that later in the class. Purdue Owl says, though the narrative essay genres have been criticized by some composition scholars, the Purdue Owl recognizes the widespread use of these approaches and students' needs to understand and produce them. I happen to agree with the Purdue Owl. Some people might consider narrative essays a throwaway assignment, but just because you're telling a story, it doesn't mean you aren't putting in academic work and learning important things like format and structure and outlining while you're at it. So the learning outcomes that I'm giving you today will give you an intro to the basics of story outlining, how to create conflict, character development, crafting a thesis statement. We'll get to more on that later, and following a story through to the conclusion. And then, because I like to keep things weird, I'm going to give you some specific parameters to meet in the essay. But don't worry, again, it's going to be fun, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. I like to think of a narrative essay as being a snapshot in words. So you've lived this whole long life, and you could write an autobiography from the first moment you blinked open your eyes after being born until this very moment right here sitting in this class. You could write about every single thing that has happened, and billions of things have happened to you, whether it's waking up and brushing your teeth or that car accident that you were in when you were 12. You could write about all of that. But you're not going to, because a narrative essay is a snapshot. It's a picture. It's a single picture of an event in your life that you take and make a story out of.